All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone. Action is reality. Now, here's your... Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
In a world where shadows dance and dreams take flight through the veil of reality into the night, Rob McConnell leads the way, a beacon so bright. With over 35 years, he ignites the light. A voice from the north where whispers are bold, stories untold in the echoes of old. Fact meets fiction in this realm of delight, in the X Zone where dark turns to bright. Welcome to the X Zone, believe and be free, a sanctuary for truth that dare to be seen, where the line between realms gently blurs, in a symphony of voices the mind stirs. With Rob McConnell, stories unfold, tales of the unknown that shimmer like gold.
Hey, good evening, one and all, and welcome back to the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next couple of hours, I've got to be your host and your guide as together we'll cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, Tuber, and on your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM, right here in St. Catharines, Ontario, and they stream us on classic1220.ca. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, and on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. My guest this hour, X Zone Nation, is a gentleman I've had the pleasure of knowing for many, many, many years. In fact, if you watch the Flintstones, you'll be able to see my guest and I doing cameo appearances. Well, we're really not that old, but we go back a long time. I'm talking about the one and only Kal Korff. And Kal, welcome back to the X Zone. Good seeing you, buddy.
Same here. It's been a while. Thank you, Rob, for having me on.
It has been a while, and it's always great talking to you, Kal. So what have you been up to since you and I last chatted?
I'd say the biggest change in my life has been kind of retiring and winding everything down, meaning I just no longer do what I used to do because it's not relevant, and I finished pretty much all the projects that I've been working on, and the stuff will come out as it is logical to do it, and that's it. If we want to talk about UFOs and paranormal, for example, the last major project I did was with investigative journalist Art Levine in Washington, D.C. There was the trilogy of exposés that impacted the UFO disclosure hearings and was able to get certain people removed from those so that they didn't con the public and waste taxpayer money. I filed ethics complaints against, several of the representatives, the lawmakers who were involved, people who believe in ancient aliens and things like that. And all that stuff is in the Washington Spectator. So after that ended, I pretty much quit. I did quit. I'm now a former whatever, and enjoying that part of it. And as of January 1st of this year, that was it. No more.
Kal, as one of the very first investigators into the UFO phenomenon, going back many years with Stanton Friedman and all the other people that you've had the opportunity to work with over the years, why do you think, Kal, the UFO phenomenon is still rich and is still part of everyday society, and people still believe that UFOs are real? People still believe that Roswell was a crashed UFO. What is it in society that drives people to believing something that no one's able to been proved yet?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked it, and for what it's worth, we're winging this. There's no script here. But that's an awesome question, and I think the timing of your question is perfect, because the real answer to your question, which I'll get to in a moment, I think must be understood. Otherwise, we've learned nothing, especially since this cultural obsession with the phenomenon goes back, as you know, to 1947. So it's been many years. So the short answer is this. America has always been kind of conspiracy oriented, meaning there's always been this undercurrent culturally of some kind of conspiracy. And when I was doing my research for my thesis on the conspiracy mindset and putting stuff out there to see people's reactions and things like that, I started to see patterns. And I've made a bunch of slides I've showed over the years, academic type slides, where I break it down. And here's the huge change that occurred that the disclosure people have managed to pull off. It used to be in the US that the mother of all conspiracies was John F. Kennedy's assassination.
Yeah.
As much as 91% of people in America at one time believed it was more than Oswald. Today, and during COVID, where people had to alter their lives and they spent a lot more time online and surfing the internet and doing whatever, a amazing change occurred, which I thought I'd never see. And it turns out that the so-called cosmic Watergate, which doesn't exist, meaning UFOs, the disclosure thing, that now is the #1 conspiracy. And it's just as invalid, if not worse, than JFK's. At least in JFK's, you can say, well, the Warren Commission couldn't prove the single bullet theory. We know there was no magic bullet. That's just nonsense. It's stupid terminology, but people still repeat it. But you can't blame the Warren Commission for taking criticisms when it made conclusions it couldn't prove. And yet we later found out and were able to independently prove and confirm that, yes, it was just Oswald. So they were ultimately right, but people still persisted in the belief. And then now pretty much all the files have been released regarding JFK, and there's no conspiracy there that people thought. Even the government's second investigation in the House Select Committee on Assassinations was wrong. There was no mafia hit. There was no grassy knoll gunmen and things we all thought was true in the 70s. So now what has happened is the UFO disclosure movement, the TikToks, it all started with the New York Times. And as Art Levine's investigative journalism and other reporting has proven, the New York Times lied to the world about the TikToks. There's basically a UFO piece that was ghosted or steered by Leslie Keane and, of course, Christopher Mellon, with Helen as the token, in-house resident journalist putting her name on it, and she's been totally silent about it. So what's happened is two things. Because the media, 90% of it roughly, is now controlled by just 8 companies, and we can thank the Democrats and Republicans for that type of stupidity, once they decide they want to run with the story, all of a sudden hundreds of networks that they own are running it. No questions. And then it's like, well, Fox is running this, New York Times is running this, CBS is running this, so we'll do monkey see, monkey do. And what you saw was new lows of journalism. You may remember that 60 Minutes actually let some of these pilots who observed these objects get away with ridiculous statements like, whoa, they were showing up every day for a year straight. No, they weren't. Not even close. But even 60 Minutes didn't stop that pilot from saying that. So you've had a media collusion working with, trying to do their version of clickbait. UFOs were very good for traffic, and it went global. And so we had this insanity, at least media-wise, where a handful of companies, from GQ magazine to CBS, 60 Minutes to New York Times, to even Scientific American and some of these others, were just not telling the truth. They weren't digging deep enough. And I'll tell you one example that's very real. Now, when you think of The Intercept, that publication, which of course made history with the Edward Snowden leaks and documents, you'd think, okay, if they look at the UFO issue, they would do a good job. They get to the truth. Well, no, they didn't. In fact, they refused to face the truth. And I know that from firsthand experience because I was working with Art and The Intercept for these exposés. And it wasted, I think, about a year of our time. And then finally, when we called them out that, oh, you're friends with so-and-so, and that's why you won't go there. That's the truth. You're not after the truth. the Washington Spectator picked it up instantly, and we were able to keep going, and the Washington Spectator focuses on political scandals, and this was absolutely a political scandal, because you have both parties now that have hijacked the UFO subject, because conspiracy people vote. They're very active. So it went from being a Harry Reid, Democrat-obsessed, crazy New Age thing to the Republicans have hijacked it in the name of the Bible and religion and fallen angels. Marjorie Green said that. So that's really what happened, was this transformation. The media is guilty of abandoning their duties and responsibilities, and then society itself doesn't trust anything. And anybody can say anything about anybody online. They do. I know I've been a victim of that. And it just goes downhill from there. So that, I think, is my short answer to it. The media has changed. They've abandoned their responsibility, and it started and ended with the New York Times. They've never retracted their proven lies, and they were lies.
Cal, years ago, I remember you were the first credible investigator to come out to point out to the world that it wasn't a crash UFO in Roswell, New Mexico. It was Project Mogul. And you ate a lot of criticism for that. A lot.
Yeah.
And justified, I might add.
Well, thank you. Yeah, what happened was, as you may remember, and this is documented in the media, I grew up with Stanton Friedman, the father of Roswell.
Mm-hmm.
And I met him when I was just 13 years old. And I had never seen a lecture before, but my father bought tickets because, he wanted to do something for his son. And it was kind of a way for us to bond, because my dad isn't into science fiction or nothing. And here his son is into UFOs. So I was like, okay, so he got me these tickets, and I got to meet Stanton Friedman, and I interviewed him for my school, and I'd never seen a lecturer before. The idea that somebody pays you to talk blew my mind. I'm 13 years old. But what shocked me was when I heard his lecture, I knew everything that was in it plus more, and it bothered me certain things he didn't say, which, presentation by omission, if it's deliberate on certain things, is actually deception. And so what happened is I said, well, I could do this. I could talk in front of people about things I think I know. And next thing I know, I'm lecturing and doing all this stuff. And so I invite him to lecture with me at my high school, John F. Kennedy. And I say, hey, let's lecture together. You do yours, I'll do mine. And I'll donate the money to my senior class, and you can do whatever you want with yours. He kept his share. Okay. And so we were in the media a lot, and I booked a series of all-day-long press conferences. All the major media were there.
Now, Cal, we're going to have to take a little break here, so please stand by. Once again, Kal Korff is our very special guest this hour. Kal has books throughout the internet. All you need to do is just go to Google or any of your favorite search engines and type his name in, Kal Korff. And quickly, Cal, how many books do you have out there now?
Oh boy, because some of them are appearing shortly. Just go to Amazon.com.
Amazon?
Yeah, that's the
all right,
place.
Cal. Please stand by, my friend. Exonation, Cal and I will return on the other side of the short break as the Exxon continues with yours truly, my special guest and good friend, the one and only Kal Korff. We'll be back on the other side of the break. Don't go away.
Take flight through the veil of reality into the night. Rob McConnell leads the way, a beacon so bright. With over 35 years, he ignites the light. A voice from the north where whispers are bold, stories untold in the echoes of old. Fact meets fiction in this realm of delight. In the X zone where dark turns to bright. Welcome to the X Zone, believe and be free. A sanctuary for truth that dare to be seen. Where the line between realms gently The snow falls down, the candles glow. There's peace in hearts the world should know. A stranger smiles, a child believes, and love wraps softly like Christmas Eve. We open doors, we lend a hand, together we learn to understand. news turns our hearts again. If every day were Christmas.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone, and that was If Every Day Were Christmas. That's on our new album that you can listen to sample tracks at www.rel- or -mar.hearnow.com, and the album and single tracks are available on all online bookstores, Amazon, Spreaker, Spotify, wherever you want. And the name of the album, once again, is Merry Christmas 2025. Kal Korff's our special guest. Wow, what can I say about Kal Korff? You know, you're a living legend, Kal.
Thank you.
I remember what happened with the oh my gosh, Roswell, when you came out with Mogul. I remember when you exposed Billy Meyer, and there's been a lot that has been going on over the years, and they say that honesty pays, and yet you were targeted. I mean, viciously targeted by many people within the UFO community and many people who, have their own media shows.
Yeah.
Why? Is it because here you are, Kal Korff, the single soldier, standing up and saying, hey, listen, you're being lied to by the mainstream media? What was it, Kal?
Well, let me finish the Stan Freeman part and then jump to the answer, because they're tied.
Okay.
So when I got into UFOs on October 19th, 1973, I, was reading all these newspaper articles and things. There was the UFO wave in 1973. And what sparked my interest was, again, in sixth grade, we were required to bring in newspaper stories about what was going on. We had to summarize them, news anchor style, and we would get 1 point per day when we did it. Problem was, my parents didn't subscribe to a newspaper, and I asked my dad, and he says, no, I'm not paying 10 cents for a newspaper. I'm like, okay, whatever. So my friends would bring them in, and I would look at them real quickly, and for some reason I could memorize the stuff and just blast it out. And so one day everybody brings in UFO articles. There was this wave going on, and I never even thought of UFOs. I was into Star Trek and space and all that, but the idea of aliens actually visiting us, like, huh? So what happened is there was one case, the Falkville, Alabama case, where the chief of police had photographed an alien. He said he did. He had taken 4 photographs that were Polaroids. Turns out it was a man in a metallic firefighting suit. It was a hoax. So here I am, 11, and I realize not only do adults lie, policemen lie even. That really sucks. So the ramifications of that case really stuck with me, because I thought it's binary, and I love binary issues and cases because it's been my observation that everything that's important in life is ultimately binary. You're either alive or you're dead. You're not a little bit pregnant. You either are or you aren't. Okay. So when I realized that this was a hoax, I thought, wow. So I read everything I could get on the subject, and I was into astronomy since the 2nd grade when I got my first telescope from my uncle. And I knew there wasn't life on Venus and the backside of the moon and all the stuff Adamski was saying in the 50s. And, that was before my time. I was born in 62. So I'm a Beatles era, I guess, guy. But it really made an impression on me. So I got to know Stanton Friedman. And I believed everything he said, meaning I assumed he was always telling the truth. And then I realized that he would say things through his belief set, and claim he was after the truth and okay. And then then I saw evidence of deception, and the media captured this, and I got letters on it, which I still have all these decades later. And basically, there's photographs of Stanton Friedman and I at my house, and I have the media there all day. I'm rotating the reporters, and because everybody's a bit off schedule, the reporters are tripping over each other. It was a little awkward. So here's the San Jose Mercury News and some other major newspapers, millions of readers, and they see this look on my face that they captured that I didn't think about, but I was in shock over what I was hearing from Stanton Friedman.
I remember that photo.
Yeah, and so what happened is Phil Klass, everybody else is looking at this. There was no internet back then. And I get letters saying, aha, you finally see through them. The look on your face is priceless. Well, what was my look? The look was shock. Because I'm looking at the Roswell debris photos for the first time. Stanton Friedman has his new movie out, UFOs Are Real, which put the thing on, made Americans aware of it. And the book, The Roswell Incident, is going to come out with Bill Moore. Bill Moore was my first publisher. Okay, he was another mentor of mine. So I am one of the 4 original researchers. In fact, I'm the last Roswell original researcher. There was Stanton Friedman, Bill Moore, Brad Sparks, and myself. So what happened was the press captured my reactions and my comments and this back and forth between he and I. And I caught Friedman making up the claim of a debris switch, because I'm looking at the photos of the debris and I'm shocked, because I'm like, Stan, this photo was in Look magazine. I got it in my library, and it was some kind of metallic kite. We didn't know about Mogul. It was still classified. And he goes, no, there must have been a debris switch. Yeah. I'm like, are you crazy? Like, what? And that was the myth, the origin of that thing, which UFO researchers who are not telling the truth, or they're ignorati, as I call them, of real history, and real history always and only matters, they're wrong. He made it up, and it's been captured for posterity, for lack of a better term, by the media, by multiple photographers. And one reporter was so upset with Friedman that he wrote an article that mocked him, and he quoted Friedman saying some crazy things. Here's an example. He said, when the space shuttle goes up, that'll bring down the UFOs. I'm like, do you really think so? And it even said, a shocked Korff, said, do you really think so? And, we were just talking to each other, and the press was documenting this. And he said, yeah, here's why. Because we will have joined the Galactic Federation by then, and they'll tell us how we can act and can't act. And I'm thinking, he thinks there's what, a federation up there, like Star Trek? It makes no sense. So then I got to know Bill Moore, who's another type of character, and he tells me he's got issues, and that there's problems, and that this is the real debris photo. And that's a problem. It is a problem, because it shows a metallic kite foil. So then what happened is I got to know Bob Todd, and he was the one that first discovered the Project Mogul connection. We worked together secretly on my book, The Roswell UFO Crash, What They Don't Want You to Know, which is on Amazon. And it is the best-selling of all-time expose book on Roswell. It exposes now over 120 other pro-UFO Roswell titles, even though I wrote the thing in 1997, and in 2000 again, adding a chapter exposing Colonel Corso was the first book to do that. And the only reason I even wrote that book, Rob, is because I called my publisher and I said, hey, what are you doing for Roswell? 50th anniversary's coming out. Do you got anything? What are you doing? Because I remember I was on Larry King CNN live over JFK on the 30th anniversary. And I quickly realized growing up that America is, for better or for worse, an anniversary society, which I think is very shallow. But that's how we roll. Or American, I don't, but other people, most Americans do, I think, meaning anniversary type culture. So we forget about something until it's National Secretary Day, right? Well, why can't we treat secretaries great all the time instead of only on their day?
Yes, that's right.
So what happens is this is an issue with Friedman, and I see him doing this on the Betty and Barney Hill case, and that was the breaker for me. Bob Schaefer had written an article about the Hill case, and he said this new star map by Charles Atterberg proves it wasn't Zeta, I call it Zeta ridiculous. And he was right. So I told Stan, I said, hey, what about this expose? You both can't be right. Schaefer's wrong or you're wrong. He says, no, I'm not an astronomer. Okay, but you're avoiding the issue. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll contact Atterberg. I'll run everything by him that you give me, and I'll find out the truth. After over 1 year of writing letters, the old-fashioned way with the Smith Corona typewriter using the post office, we had this massive correspondence file. And at the end of all that, double-checking everything, I conclude that the fish map is wrong, Friedman's wrong, there's no Zeta Reticuli connection at all, and because more than one star system fits her map, it's a Rorschach. And he never told the truth about that. He knew. And I have all those letters, Rob. They're going to be released at some point. I'm donating them to the National Archives in New Mexico for history. And these are letters written by me, and nobody knows that I'm a kid because they get a letter typed and they think they're talking to an adult. And I never said, I'm Cal, I'm 13, let's talk. They you go away, kid. So they would reply to me and then only find out years later that I was a kid the whole time. So I knew everybody from Carl Sagan, to Friedman, to Hynek. I'm honored to have been mentored by these people, to have known them. I didn't know till Friedman told me that Sagan and he were classmates at Cornell. Wow, what a small world, but talk about opposite directions. So I had a problem with Friedman by the time I graduated from high school, and I just let people make up their own minds. I think you can say there must be life elsewhere out there, otherwise we couldn't exist. We can't be an exception to the laws of the universe. But when they're visiting us, that's a whole different issue. So on the Hill case, what I found out in my over 50 years now of studying the top mysteries, Bigfoot, remember we found the guy who wore the suit, we found the guy who made the costume, we put them back together in a recreation that duplicated and exposed the Patterson film. It aired on National Geographic TV, other media covered it, 40 and Times ran it on the cover of their magazine. I was in England giving 4 lectures on it when all this happened. Case closed. I'm not saying there's no such creature, I don't know. But until there's evidence that there is, it doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned. But I can say the one case, the Patterson film, is an absolute hoax. We know who made the costume. He did sell it to Patterson. He had all the original documentation, even the original feet. I met him. We spent days together recreating all this. Case closed. Nobody else has done that, and they ignore it. Same with Mogul and Roswell. It's avoidance, it's denial, and it doesn't help society. To me, I'm happy the mysteries were solved. But my first question, and it started with JFK, was why did people believe what they believed? Combination of ignorance, lying, and the media being guilty of not telling the truth. Look at the lunacy that hit when Oliver Stone's movie came out. There were 5 gunmen. Really? That's ridiculous.
Cal, stand by. You and I have to take our break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, Kal Korff is our special guest. Go to Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, type in KalKorff, and all his books will pop up. Great Christmas ideas for those who are interested in getting at the truth. Wow. Once again, if you'd like to get a copy of our Merry Christmas 2025, just go to www.rel-mar.herenow.com. This is The X, and I'm Rob McConnell, and you're listening to us streaming around the world from the studios of your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM, right here in St. Catharines on classic1220.ca. Don't go away.
Together we learn to understand. Old friends call and bridges mend. For Christmas turns our hearts again. Oh. Past midnight on Yates Street, the signal hums low. Static's alive and the shadows glow through the glass of the control room door. Something whispers, we've been here before. Old footsteps echo the real sighs. The red on air light flickers and dies through the hallway. A chill creeps deep. CKTB never sleeps. Ghosts on Yates Street, calling my name, riding the airwaves, lost in the flame. From the grave to the mic, they rise again, telling the stories through static and rain. Phantoms whisper where the signal bleeds. Ghosts on Yates Street.
Welcome back. Ghosts on Yates Street. That's about the time that the X-Zone radio show was produced at News Talk 610 CKTB, where I was also the senior executive producer for the station. We had a lot of good times there, and it is undoubtedly the most haunted radio station in Canada. And it is on album number 2 that we put out called Music of the X-Zone, and it's also available online. Kal Korff, we were talking about Bigfoot. Now, what was the name of the gentleman that was in the suit? I can't remember it.
Yeah, ironically, his name was Bob Hieronymus.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, because there was this radio show,
Bob
Hieronymus
Hieronymus
and Company.
Yeah.
And I guess the other Hieronymus. I was on his show, ironically, debating Jim Delatoso, and poor Jim Delatoso, meaning when we debated real quickly, Delatoso hadn't even read my book, Spaceships of the Pleiades, a Billy Meyer story from Prometheus, where I'd gone undercover to, bust the Meyer cult. And so the debate, was a wash for him because he, as the host told him, next time, at least read the book before you debate, prepare. So he got mad at me because he thought I was saying he was Bigfoot. And I'm like, no, it's another guy named Bob Hieronymus. What are the odds, But it was Bob Hieronymus. Philip Morris made the costume. And I was the manager of the project, The Making of Bigfoot. And my name is on the cover of that book by Greg Long. And all these years later, it remains the top expose of that case. Greg did an awesome job. Bob is such an honest person. And I was the manager of him, of Greg Long. And we also exposed Bigfoot and World's Greatest Hoaxes because Bob Hieronymus saw that show and he picked up the phone and he called Bob Kiviat, the producer. Kiviat calls me, says, what do we do, etc. And the rest is history. So if you look at my life and my existence, the thing that people who attack me or people who think about me, I guess, they forget that I've devoted my whole existence starting October 1973 to three things. I call them my three charters of responsibility. And I actually formed a couple companies in the 80s and 90s that focused on this. One is conduct original research. Original research pushes the human race forwards, period. Finish existing or finish unfinished research, meaning unfinished research in my mind is wasted research. So I would look at existing issues that were never completed for whatever reason, give my attempt at solving it, and then once I did, release the data to the public, move on. The third thing I've devoted my life to, which is when I ended up having these 500 projects over the decades, was look at existing issues, try to find solutions, release it to the public, move on, let the public decide. So if you look at my track record, which is easily verifiable, my life's always been an open book public-wise just because of being in the media as a young kid to present. You look at Kennedy assassination, it got solved. The 3D reconstructions, the lapel flipping up that I found that got me on Larry King and so on, that was solved. Bigfoot was solved. It doesn't get better than the costume maker and the guy who wore the suit. And you notice that Patty Patterson quit selling that film after it was busted because she couldn't anymore. Billy Meyer going undercover, pretending to hate Kal Korff. They loved me over there, not knowing it was me. And then I went again a second time for Fox TV. Several years later, I got Billy Meyer's wife, who had just left him, to tell the truth about him, that he's a cult leader. And during that time, I went as Steve Thomas, posing as this guy Steve Thomas who didn't exist, who was really me. And then second time, I just had to kind of have fun with it. I knew the Meyer cult so thoroughly then that I knew they revere the name Meyer. So I actually used the name Oscar Mayer Wiener over there. And I got away with it. When I told Brunhilde, my name is Oscar. Oscar what? Oscar Mayer Wiener. Oh, your middle name's Meyer. Yes. Boom. She missed the irony, but it worked. And then, you look at the analysis of the Hill case. I couldn't stand the fact that Phil Klass would say this and Stem would say this. Well, who's right? So I'm the kid in the middle. I'm friends with both. Phil Klass didn't even know I was a kid till we met years later. And then when I started to see what was really going on, I would just call it as I see it. And what I found out is a lot of the UFO researchers, they're not really into the truth. They're into verifying their pet theories. And that's something humans do. You don't hang out with friends that disagree with you. You hang out with friends that kind of think the way you do. That's human nature. But it gets really problematic when you try to solve a subject and study it, because science doesn't care about your opinion. Facts don't care about an opinion. Facts are inviolate. They can be independently verified by anybody, and they must always be revered and deferred to. But that's not what was going on. And the whole UFO disclosure thing, it's, as I said many times a couple years ago when I was doing this with Art, it's different faces, same story. Old story, new faces, that's all. And now you have people that are just not even credible, not even out the door, but they wouldn't have got away with this stuff decades ago when we thought more critically. But now with the media being in bed with them and not caring about the truth, society loses.
It seems the media is doing play for pay.
They are.
They're following stories in order to get the clicks on their websites, and it's all about money. Follow the money. And when it comes to Fox, I've never seen such a deplorable excuse for media as Fox has turned in. I'm talking about Fox News here. President Trump's own media blitz. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. Of course, I've been on Fox TV the most of all the major networks, but they were a very different Fox.
Very much so.
And you have to remember, Fox did the alien autopsy special, and of course it's a hoax film. But then they funded World's Greatest Hoaxes, Secrets Finally Revealed, that I was the main person in, and it was Bob Kvyat's production. And here we are taking out the alien autopsy. I had traveled to Europe to find people who were, involved in it in the first fake film, got them on camera, found them, went and, undercover to get Meyer's wife, got her on camera. She wasn't aware I was coming, but, everything was fine. But she got to see for the first time, Rob, what Semyazi and Asket, Nira, and some of the other Pleiadians look like. And they were simply women from the Dean Martin show in miniskirts. Because Pleiadians wear miniskirts, right? They look like hookers, to be honest. That's how they dressed in the 70s. And there's people who today that dress like Pleiadians, and they look like hookers because nowadays...
Looking like a hooker is the thing.
Yeah, exactly. So at least Fox, you could do that. As long as Fox made money, that's okay. But now, ever since they become basically right-wing extremism, I want to drive home the point, and this is something a lot of people don't understand as they should, that anybody who says we're being visited by aliens or any of this paranormal stuff is an extremist. That doesn't mean they're a terrorist. They're not the same thing. Extremists believe in things that are not grounded in verifiable facts. The subject is just a detail because it has to be at least one subject, right? So it has nothing to do with terrorists. It has to do with your willingness to lie and deceive because of your will to believe, and to deny facts. When you deny the costume maker, the guy who wore the suit, the Hill star map, it still is pathetic in my mind that people can't get on their computer. There's plenty of astronomy apps out there where you can actually see what's going on, and you can't get the Hill map to work because it never was a match. And all it takes is a simple check with a simple astronomy app now. You don't have to build your own star map and all this other stuff that they did in the 70s. And even then it didn't hold up when people told the truth. They looked at Atterberg's map versus Marjorie Fisher's because Atterberg's was more accurate. But again, the fact that there were two of them instead of just one proved the case was nothing more than just another abduction story. Okay. And then we found out Betty Hill contacted ghosts. The house they lived in was haunted. And the whole legacy has been taken over by their descendants and relatives, and they're making money off of it. And so the truth was not first and foremost. I miss the days of Dr. Hynek types where you had credibility, predictability, and integrity, at least within reason. And now you don't have any of that. You've got producers that'll lie and look you in the face and say, I know the person that saw this. Well, the person didn't see that, so the fact you know them is not relevant. The fact they're lying is relevant.
Cal, what would have happened if Stanton Friedman would have never picked up the story of Roswell and ran with it?
It wouldn't have made a difference, and here's why. Because until Roswell, it was the Hill case, and he glommed onto that in the late 60s and early 70s. Before Roswell kicked in, which was near the end of the 70s. And it was Bill Moore who did most of that work. It wasn't Friedman. Friedman happened to meet Jesse Marcel, and Marcel said, I think we may have done this. And when you look at Jesse Marcel, and I'm the only one who got his military file, along with Bob Todd, it turns out he wasn't a pilot, so he couldn't have flown the wreckage. He didn't know how, meaning he wasn't a rated pilot. And in his review, signed off by General Ramey days after the incident, Ramey says clearly, this officer, is a good officer, but he has a tendency to magnify problems he's confronted with.
Something
and this is just ignored.
Something I could never understand, Cal, is why any of the people who have written books about Roswell, besides yourself, never mention the fact that Jesse Marcel broke the chain of custody. You know, when he picked up the debris and he puts it in the Jeep, and instead of going right back to the base, what does he do? He stops at his house, wakes up his wife and kid, and lets them play with the material. As soon as that happened, in my opinion, that case is over. It's crap. It's nothing.
Yeah. Well, here's a little piece of real history that even Stanton Friedman and other Roswell authors, if they're honest, will confirm. The wife of Jesse Marcel, they were known as, there was, let's say, a lot of alcohol. She was so impressed with this unusual debris that she just swept it out on the patio as garbage. It was just foil and sticks. And when you look at the original testimonies, there were no I-beams. Even Jesse Marcel Sr. said his son got that wrong. He changed the story over time. They were square sticks, which is exactly what Mogul used. And so we know it was Project Mogul because, ironically, do you know who the physicist was that made Mogul possible?
Yeah.
Dr. Sergei Korff. Yeah. So no one can tell me, as a Korff, that Roswell involved aliens. No. Not only was I mentored by the father of Roswell, and the media captured the moment he made up the debris switch. And again, none of this is an attack on Stanton Friedman. It's just facts.
Right.
But then the physicist happened to be, you can look it up, Dr. Sergei Korff.
So why even today it's a big thing? The Roswell Festival, I think, kind of, you know, it's kind of shoddy.
It is. And actually last year, as I recall, was the first time it really wasn't the big deal. They were so desperate for
From the mountains out in BC to the shores of Newfoundland, lights are glowing through the snow, hearts are open hand in hand. From the prairie's silent winter fields to the streets of Montreal, the spirit of the season brings its magic to us all. It's that special time of year across Canada when the world feels warm and near. Families gather, voices sing of love and hope and cheer. From the northern lights to city streets, the message rings so clear. It's Christmas across Canada, that special time of year.
And welcome back. Kal Korff is our guest. First of all, Kal, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here on the X Zone. Now, you're going to be back with us this coming Friday, and I believe Art Levine is going to be with you.
Is it Friday or is it next Monday?
I'll have to check.
I think it's next Monday.
Next Monday, you're right. You're right, next Monday.
Yeah, he's ready to go, and he'll tell you what he did in his articles, and then I'll tell people what I did and how we worked together.
Tell us a little bit about Art Levine.
Art Levine, I've known him since 1997. He actually recorded, he did for the 50th anniversary of Roswell, he did a series of articles for MSNBC, so they were huge. They also appeared in U.S. News and World Report and some other places. And his articles and the stuff he did on me, and I was on the Roswell special all day on July 4th, because we know the Roswell event happened on July 4th. The aliens are patriotic. They love America. They crashed deliberately in America so we could reverse engineer their technology and show the Russians who was boss. Uh-huh. So they have this. So on the 50th anniversary from Roswell, all this parade when Pathfinder's landing on Mars. Again, I was the UFO guy on that show with Colonel Kittinger and Captain McAndrew, Colonel Weaver, and so on. It was the only Roswell coverage that talked about Mogul. Everyone else was saying it was all true. Corso's book was coming out. It was complete nonsense, but we went ahead and exposed all that. So Art Levine goes back to those days. He also remembers, because he's up there in years like we are, the scandals at SRI over the stupid psychic research they did. I was a kid working in that stuff. That's where I cut my teeth on part of it. So what Art brings is a vast knowledge of real experience in history in that subject, and I wanted to work with a competent investigative journalist who understood the subject and the personalities. So he interviewed everybody from Ron Pandolfi of the CIA, who was the UFO guy. I have Pandolfi on tape saying that Harry Reid took the money. That the money didn't go to ATIP really, that Harry Reid took it and got out of politics. And that's what Pandolfi says, and who knows if he's telling the truth. But as I told Kiviat years ago, we have to release that tape because it's a matter of public record. So Art Levine will be able to tell you what he's done. He has an awesome book, has nothing to do with UFOs. He's the one that broke open the opioid scandal and was proving that Big Pharma was saturating small towns in the South with drugs so that they would get hooked. And then it created a opioid addiction in the population. So he has blown open the scandal, and right now he's working on another investigative piece regarding abusing children and things like that, which is just heartbreaking, but he's going to get it out there. And then he's going to do a piece back on this movie that's come out that's ridiculous about UFO disclosure, which doesn't have anything new. It's just the same people recycled over and over, but because the media is hyping it, they want to make the money. They're trying to go to a well that's already run dry. So going forward, to answer your question earlier, what I'm looking forward to is the project that we talked about, where I have developed an e-reader software, and it can contain anything, and it has database engine built into it, and it's not a normal e-reader. It's completely interactive, and you can do anything with what you want with it. The content doesn't matter, but it's seamless. And so I look forward to working with you to develop the couple of apps we talked about. And then this will be really interesting, Rob. You can take your data, or anybody can take their data, put it in there, and you can interact with it. And it's going to tell you things you didn't know before, because maybe you forgot that on issue 20, page 2, it said this, issue 40, it does all this stuff for you. And I'm real excited about it. It's also one of the last projects I'm doing, because again, I've retired from all this. I've walked away. I'm not going to be doing UFOs and paranormal anymore unless something really happens. But then I'll let the so-called experts deal with it. If aliens land on the White House, they don't need Kal Korff. But I'm done with all this other stuff. I'm not going to miss it. And then if people still want to behave or misbehave, then they'll have to deal with people who have authority to stop that. But I'm done. And I'm happy to. And I've got so many other things I can do. I want to enjoy the rest of my life. And I'm happy to work with you on a platform and a piece of software that will allow things to be done that have never been done before. And the subject doesn't matter, but each one will breed great things because each subject is different and you can do different things. So, for example, if you looked at the e-reader software and you wanted to find out about Loch Ness, you're going to actually look at underwater scans of the whole loch from satellite, proving there's no big creature. Otherwise, it would be there. Duh, hello, And so, I'm just looking forward to that and getting it out there and getting it into your hands and take it from there.
So, Kal, quickly, I'd like to ask you about your thoughts, your ideas, and your comments on Skinwalker Ranch.
Well, which phase of it? There was the phase when Robert Bigelow owned it, and there was the phase when Brandon bought it. It's different. As long as they have a series tied to it, there's going to be contrived mysteries, because the fact is there is no evidence that skinwalkers even exist, and especially in the form that the popular media has misrepresented them, because they just make it up. When I read the books that there were dino beavers, really? No. Dino beavers, no. But to have these people say they saw one, but they just couldn't get their iPhone out and take a picture.
Yeah.
See, that's just it. Everyone has an iPhone or an Android phone. There's almost, 5 billion phone cameras now constantly going from people. But where's all the UFO imagery that's not coming in proportion? It's a gotcha that proves there's nothing going on.
The imagery has decreased significantly with the advent of the iPhone and the cameras in it, yeah.
Yeah, I think it proves the aliens are camera shy.
Well, could be, or they're hiding on the other side of the moon.
The dark side of the moon, yeah, like Pink Floyd warned us, yeah.
Three-Eye Atlas, the intergalactic, inter-universe comet. People really believe, Kal, that this is going to be Independence Day. What's your take on it?
No, it's not. It's, again, using my non-psychic powers, I non-psychically predict that nothing's going to happen, that the only hype is from people who are hyping. And although it's unusual to see a interstellar object or extrasolar object come in so close, it's an exception, not the rule. It still is a natural phenomenon. And this is a warning for everybody who believes in the so-called paranormal. I've always hated that term, because if the paranormal exists, and it does not, it's really normal. It's not para. Para means beyond, aside from itself. It can't be. It has to be part of the whole. So if all this stuff is true, or ghosts are proven one day, it's always been normal. It wasn't paranormal just because we didn't know about it. And if you look at the history of how science evolved, it was only a couple hundred years ago that people thought meteors were a myth.
Yeah.
You know?
So where do you see the UFO community going in, let's say, 5 years? You know, we watched the congressional hearings. It was nothing. It was really nothing. You had a bunch of whistleblowers who shouldn't have been there in the first place because nobody blew anybody's whistle that I saw. It was a waste of time.
It was. They have nothing, and they're being led around by the nose by people who are not ethical and honest. They're hoaxers, they're deceivers. If you look at the photos of the cases they didn't talk about because they were stopped by the ethics complaints and other things that we did and other people, you know, the whistleblower, they've ruined the term. I'm a legally protected whistleblower who turned over data to the SEC over TTSA and all this other stuff. It's a matter of public record. When Art is on your show, he's actually going to let people download for free, if you agree, the actual complaints and the stuff the government looked at. But now the whole SEC oversight thing's been gutted. Trump fired all the Council of Inspector Generals. And so there's no oversight at all, deliberately. So it's not going anywhere. And now everyone says they're a whistleblower, and it's not even an accurate term. A whistleblower can provide firsthand evidence of something. Grush is not a whistleblower. He claims he heard. Well, that's not firsthand evidence.
No, it's not.
Hearing a story doesn't make you a whistleblower. So the media doesn't even use the right word to describe these people, which is a hoaxer, or he's wrong. He's not a whistleblower. We don't have UFO whistleblowers other than ones who are warning people, like I did with the government and military, that, hey, this is fraud, you need to be aware of it, because they're deceiving you, and that means the media, and the media, of course, is helping deceive the rest of the world, too.
We have about 2 minutes left. Maelstrom Air Force Base and the alleged UFO that knocked out the missile silos.
No, again, the source for that is only from the same people who have been saying this for years. The U.S. government, RO, has investigated that, and they concluded it didn't happen as these guys have reported, just like a lot of the footage of what's been going on has been traced to. One of them was traced to a Batman balloon. That's how competent these people were.
Unreal. Yeah, well, you know, Kal, I'm looking forward to next Monday when you're with us with Art Levine. I want to thank you for all the hard work that you've done over the years and the information that you've gotten out. Congratulations on all the books you've done. And we look forward to working with you on that great app project that you've been talking to us about. In the final 50 seconds, what is your message for the members of the Exo Nation watching and listening tonight?
Think critically, and ironically, as it says on my family crest in Latin, trust but verify. That's actually on the Korff family crest. So trust but verify. Think critically. And if it's a fact, you can independently verify it. And someone claiming it's true is not automatic verification. You need to get to something that stands independent of people, You got to trust but verify. Otherwise, you're going to get in trouble because you might make a decision that's important that was not based on reality, and that doesn't usually work out well.
Kal Korff, thanks very much for joining us tonight. Look forward to speaking and seeing you next Monday. Do me a favor, Kal. Say hi to your mom for me.
I certainly will. Thank you.
Good night, Kal. Exonation, Kal Korff has been my guest this hour. www. No, he doesn't have a www, does he? No. Let's just go to Amazon and type in his name, Kal Korff, and all his books are there. I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue with hour number 2 tonight here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And once again, we're on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, Tuber, and around the world on your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM, right here in St. Catharines, who stream us on classic1220.ca.
Lights are glowing through the snow, hearts are open, hand in hand. From the prairie's silent winter fields to the streets of Montreal, the spirit of the season brings its magic to us all.